Thanks for sharing all that great information about aquaponics with us. Right now we're going to be talking about the edible landscape, or edible Texas landscape, because we're talking about native plants, and I'm joined by Andrea DeLongamaya from the Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Center. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for having me again.
And you have a cool new garden space at the Wildflower Center that's all about edible natives.
We do, yes. It's about a 300 square foot garden where we're kind of cultivating native plants sort of in a farm setting.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's not available to the public except for special tours, but we can set up things if people want to see them. But it's really exciting because the project, it's called A Taste of Place, which
is a
connects,
great title.
Yes, it's very clever. Can't take credit for that, but it's having, native plants that are local here. But part of the project is also not just to cultivate them and see how things do under a cultivated production kind of situation, but also we have another piece of it, which is to do wild harvesting. So trying to take advantage of the native plants that are already around us, and have fun with it.
Well, native plants sustained a lot of people in Texas for a long time before the Europeans showed up. And I always think that Austin was such a popular place with Native Americans because of pecans.
Oh, yes, yummy pecans. Life would not be the same without them.
Spring water, lots of deer and bison, and pecans. What's not to love, right? But there are lots of other things.
There are. It's kind of mind-boggling how many cool things there are to eat. And our staff and volunteers have been playing around with different recipes and always looking for more recipes. You can go to our website and see some of the recipes that we've collected.
You're processing the tunas from prickly pears.
Yeah. So we did some harvesting last summer. We had a group of volunteers and some staff people went out and picked them very carefully.
With
metal
gloves.
tongs actually work really
smart.
well. You can just break them off, put them in a bucket, and then you can boil them, and it kind of takes the needles off, and then you can just scrape out the insides with a spoon. And process that. And actually our cafe, we brought a bunch of prickly pear tunas to our cafe, and they processed them and made a beautiful concentrated juice that they then used to put in lemonade. They also used it for prickly pear vinaigrette for their salads.
Sounds good.
And we had a salad featured that had the prickly pear vinaigrette, native purslane, and also pecans. And it was a beautiful salad, very delicious.
Okay. You can make prickly pear margaritas too.
And yes, prickly pear margaritas.
Notice that you didn't serve that at the cafe. Wildflower Center.
Actually, one of our staff has made them with the harvest from last summer.
Okay. Very sweet, very wonderful, and been used for a long time as well.
And it's really pretty when you make that concentrated juice. It's that real saturated magenta. It's
amazing.
Really pretty.
Really beautiful. Pretty. Well, you brought some treats with you today.
I did.
And we have a little arrangement featuring some of the different things. Now, the crackers and the cheese are not native necessarily.
This is true. Those are store-bought.
Store-bought. However, they're topped by some things, and I want you to kind of share what you've arranged here.
So it's still the cool season right now. So this is a cool season green. The greens that you see on the crackers are pink evening primrose leaves.
Now wait a minute.
Pink evening primrose
as a green. Now I've heard of dandelions being a green, but I've never heard of pink evening primrose.
So this plant that you see commonly all over Central Texas. Right. It's really delicious, and seems like it has a flavor just like kind of green plant flavor, but as the spring gets a little warmer, it starts to get a little bit of bite to it. Not strong, but it's sort of like other greens.
Sure.
I actually think the flavor is better as it gets a little bit more like arugula.
Okay.
So I put a little bit of that fresh. It's good in salads or sandwiches.
Okay. So you have chèvre, which is a goat cheese, topped with pink evening primrose.
Yep.
And there's a little bottle there.
So that is the chili pekin vinaigrette, or vinegar.
Okay.
So it's just vinegar with native chili pekins that we harvested last summer. Very simple to make.
Right.
And then you can just sprinkle a little bit of that on as to taste, to give it a little bit of heat to those crackers.
I would imagine more than a little bit of heat sometimes.
Yeah. Depends on how long you let the chilies steep in the vinegar.
Now, people could find a lot of these recipes online at the Wildflower Center's new website, right?
Yes, please visit that. And
it's a beautiful
look for
site,
A Taste of Place, and that will send you to a page that talks about the project and some different recipes. And
so lots of different opportunities there. Let's talk about some other things that are common edibles for that are Texas native plants.
So also on the plate next to the crackers, you'll see there's some wild onions. That one
Yes.
is Allium canadensis, which grows native here all the way, obviously, up to Canada.
All right.
And that you could actually put on crackers anytime you would want to use, like the green part, like you would make chives, anything
Yeah.
you do with chives. The bulbs are edible.
Right.
And as with any native foraging, you want to make sure that you have the right identification. And onions are particularly tricky because there are a lot of things in the onion family or the lily family that are
Yes.
very toxic.
Okay.
So if you think you have an onion, smell it before you put it in your mouth and make sure that it smells very strongly like onions. And if it does, you're pretty safe. If it
Yeah.
doesn't smell like onions, don't eat it.
Okay.
And my motto is you can eat anything at least once.
Well, hopefully more often than once.
We hope so.
I hope our audience will heed the warnings. Must smell like onion.
Yes.
You know, I used to have wild onions coming up in my yard, and they were next to impossible to eradicate. They're
right.
very, very tenacious little plants. But most definitely onions, because whenever I worked with them, I smell like onions for the next day.
And that's one of the beautiful things about using some of these native plants, like the onions or the pink evening primrose.
Right.
If you have some, you probably have a lot. And so you don't mind pulling up a few
Sure.
to harvest and
Sure.
share with.
Well, you
people.
brought something else along with you,
Yes.
and I'm going to hold this up. And most people would not recognize this
Right.
as purple coneflower.
That's right.
AKA echinacea.
That's right. And I just dug that up out of the garden. So
Uh-huh.
this time of year, it's mostly dormant, but you do see some little red leaf buds coming out there. And purple coneflower, echinacea, is one of our native plants that's used commercially quite a lot
Right.
for herbal medicinal remedies. And there's a
Okay.
little slice of the root.
Okay.
And you can just put that on your tongue and you'll get a little bit of tingle. It might take it a
Definitely
minute.
a little bit of tingle there.
Yeah,
No,
and
it
that's
didn't
when you
take a
know
minute.
right away.
Uh-huh.
And it when you get that tingle, that's when you know you're getting that that medicinal property of it. And echinacea is used for boosting the immune system. You can
Right.
spend a lot of money in a little bottle at the health food store, but you can do your own. You know, it takes a little bit
Right.
of processing. You just take that root and scrape the bark off, and then you can dry it or make a tea out of it or a tincture.
Right. Well, gorgeous little rhizome with the bright red sprouts coming out on the side.
So I did this maybe towards the end of our interview because your tongue might start getting numb and then it'll be hard to talk. Should have warned you.
That's all right. I will press on regardless.
Okay.
But you were mentioning another plant that you use, which is devil's claw.
Oh yes, the devil's claw.
Now, describe the plant first to our audience.
Yeah, so devil's claw is an annual that grows very quickly. It's a warm season plant, really pretty pink flowers with kind of little orange and yellow in them. And then they make these crazy pods that when they're young, they're real velvety on the outside. Actually, when you touch them, they're sort of glandular, they're kind of sticky. But you pick them when they're still young and tender like you would okra, and you can do anything with them that you would with okra. So pickling them is a really easy thing to do. Put them in a stir fry or anything like that. And we did several batches of devil's claw pickles. And we have that
sounds
recipe
like
on our
fun,
website
actually.
too. They're delicious. You can put a little garlic or maybe some of the native Canada onion along with some of the native chili piquin and then and some vinegar and a little bit of salt, maybe sugar if you prefer that. And they're real crisp and crunchy when you take them out and they're delicious.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, real briefly, tell me about one other plant that you're featuring in the A Taste of Place garden.
One other plant that we have, what haven't we talked about? Well, we're doing some different plants that are good for making teas or herbal
makes a lot of
infusions,
sense.
technically. But yeah, one of them that we did a wild harvest of this last summer was a plant called prairie tea, also called doveweed. And it's a little annual that you can harvest the leaves, dry them, and crumble them up and make a tea. And I've done that a few times over the last few years, and it's actually really tasty, and it's super easy. So prairie tea.
Okay, prairie tea it is then.
And you often see them just growing in wastelands where it's really disturbed soil. They're very easy annuals.
Yeah, so...
A weed, for sure.
Well, weeds have the purpose.
That's right.
Tea in this case. Well, as always, Andrea, it is a pleasure visiting with you. I hope folks will get out to the Wildflower Center and go online to download these recipes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being able to talk about these fun
Okay,
things.
cool. Coming up next is our friend Daphne.